Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Brewing Business Show. This is a space dedicated to the craft beer industry and entrepreneurs who wants to learn more about mindset, health, wealth, business, and of course, beer. I'm your host, Pedro Menezes, and before we start, I just want to make sure you buckle up, crack open a cold one, and get ready to hear some life-changing information. Cheers. Welcome back, everybody. Guys, I'm so excited about today's shows because we're not only doing the 10th episode of the Brewing Business Show, which I believe marks a small goal in the journey of this show, but we also have a great guest today who will provide us with very, very important data about the current situation in the craft beer industry. Our guest today is the founder of Hopalytics, a data analytic organization supporting the craft beer industry through tracking consumer perspectives and insight. Hopalytics published the first Texas craft beer report at the end of 2019, and recently produced a report on craft beer consumer behavior during the COVID-19 to help you guys to better plan your strategies to get through this season. And today, he will give us a detailed overview of his report and the strategies you can implement in the upcoming months to bulletproof your brewery. So welcome to the show, Aled. It's a pleasure to have you here, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And congrats on the 10 shows. I'm happy to be part of number 10.
Yeah, I like that number, so I'm excited about it too. It's a very, very important goal at this point, But anyway, man, there's people watching already and listening to the show right now. So why don't we just jump in and talk to us a little bit about your background, where you're coming from, so people can get to know you more, man.
Yeah, sure. Well, as you can probably tell, I'm not from Texas. I'm from Wales originally, but I've been in Texas almost 5 years. I've been a big craft beer guy for a while, but in my professional life, I've always been into data analytics. Spent a lot of years working in higher education, crunching numbers, surveys, that kind of thing. And so about 2 years ago, I started to realize that there was this big need in the craft beer industry to just kind of find different ways of capturing data. Found that a lot of breweries were making decisions based on pretty low quality data points, things like Yelp and Google reviews and Untapped, all of which obviously have their place, but none of them are really that necessarily that useful, right? It's a place where people go to usually shout about good things or scream about bad things. And so what we identified was that there was a need for really good qualified input and someone to not just collect that data, but also analyze it, and then produce output that can be turned into kind of useful snippets to be able to say, okay, based on these trends that we're seeing, here's 2 or 3 pieces of advice if you're looking to launch a certain product, or if you're looking to be known for a certain type of beer or a certain type of taproom experience. These are the things you can be doing to do that. So we've had a lot of fun so far collecting data. We put out a few different reports, as you mentioned, a lot of which has gone down very well, some of which maybe a little controversial or not go down so well, which is fine. But the key thing that we try and do is try and collect all that data and then give brewery owners and brewers access to it to try and make better business decisions.
Which I believe is very important to have that data, and I think you're doing an outstanding job so far providing this, all of us, not only the brewery owners, but the people who we're trying to serve this industry too, so they can grow their business. I think this is very, very important information that you can provide because like we were talking before the show, right? There's not information like this out there that can actually help brewery owners, right? That there's no information out there that can help them improve their sales strategies, their marketing strategies, their business practice strategies, anything in that is business related to a brewery, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, as any business owner, I think this is not just limited to breweries, but as any business owner, you have an idea of what you do well and an idea of what you don't do well, or an idea of how folks see you and what their perception is. But I think it's always really useful and important to understand, to take a snapshot and say, okay, what do folks know us for? What kind of beers does the consumer think that we brew well? What are the breweries that our consumers also drinking beer from, right? Who are they comparing us with? How far are folks traveling from to visit our brewery? Things like that start to educate brewery owners or anyone responsible for marketing a brewery, and start to, I think, open some doors and spot some opportunities. And it hasn't always got to be a really large data set. It hasn't got to be thousands of people. You can take a small subset of people 10, 20 folks and get some really good input on how you're perceived.
Absolutely. And I guess now more than ever, it is important to have access to information like this because, the world is constantly changing. Like with technology, like the things that we're doing today at this precise moment is not the same things that we were doing 3 weeks ago, a month ago,
Yeah, that's so true. And I think it's actually been really impressive how a lot of craft breweries in particular have pivoted to not just to the beer to go piece, the curbside piece, but particularly to the online piece. Integrating their point of sale applications into online selling so people can buy ahead of time and pick up. I think that's been really impressive to see. And, I don't think there's going to be many good things that come from the COVID-19 lockdown, but, maybe some of the innovations that the breweries have had to put in place over the past few weeks, maybe seeing those kind of follow through to everyday life when things are back to normal. Maybe that'll be, one of the silver linings of the whole thing.
Absolutely. So, based on your recent, let's talk a little bit about your recent report, man. What was the main points that you discovered during how consumers are behaving during COVID-19?
So that was an interesting one because that was the first national survey that we did. And so you obviously see a lot of different regional shifts, and that's often related to the different laws, state by state laws. Coming from the UK originally, seeing 50 different beer laws in 50 different states in the US, it's difficult for anyone to kind of navigate. But certainly, the most important thing that consumers were looking for when they were trying to understand where can I buy beer to go, I thought it would be location. It would be that the fact that the brewery is, down the road from me or it's on the way back from the grocery store. But in reality, the number one point was how active and how clear a brewery is being in their communication on social media. How often are they updating me? How often am I able to find up-to-date information on their menu, the beers that they have available to buy, but also their opening hours as well. And so when we put that report out about a month ago now, so a few weeks into the lockdown, a lot of breweries reached out and said, okay, wow, we didn't realize how important that was. And even if we were only posting once every couple of days, when we increased that to once a day or multiple times a day, we saw a significant increase in the engagement from our consumers and ultimately people who are coming to the brewery. So I think that was a really important piece that maybe some folks overlooked to start with, not just posting online, but the rate at which you post online.
Which I believe that's huge, man, because that is something that I think when you have the data is easier to help people understand how important it is to use social media now. And this is gonna shape the entire industry. And in the future, there's gonna be a huge stream of revenue for any brewery, online sales. But it is great that you discovered this because, like you said, breweries before this, they were like, oh, we don't need to use social media. We have word of mouth, we have this, we have our community that they keep coming. But I think right now we are looking at a great opportunity to even triple their income on a monthly basis. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, the social media piece is super important, not just because you're engaging with your current consumers, but for the fact that folks are sharing and you're reaching out with those people who are one degree of separation away as well. I think it's not just about the posting on social media. You're right. It's also about the engagement. So making sure that you're there to answer any questions, making sure that you're there to respond to any queries right away. The funny thing, or not so funny, it's actually not that funny, I guess, is the interesting thing is with the spike in social media posts over the past few weeks from breweries, it also brings, some, you can get in some troubled waters sometimes on social media. So just making sure you have that pretty independent, unbiased, non-political, nothing too risque social media approach. I think that serves you really well. Some breweries I've seen have tried to wade into the COVID lockdown conversation. That never ends well. Even if however right you think you are, there'll be folks that disagree with you, and they're all your potential customers. And that never ends well.
It's funny that you said that for two reasons that I'm gonna say right now because I believe everything happens for a reason. And I was having a conversation in the comments with some people early today, and I was explaining a little bit about how important it is to post every single day, if not even 2 or 3 times a day. And one of the responses was that they felt like posting even 2 times a day was kind of like an aggressive approach. So I was explaining them, and I break down why it's important to make several posts a day. And like you were mentioned, why you gonna don't get to talking to the COVID and to the political stuff, like that is why it's important. And I think that I'm so grateful that you're here today, because you have all the data, and I have the strategies that can be implemented to generate more revenue through online sales. So for example, like you were saying, why are you gonna get in a conversation of politics or COVID? It's not gonna end up well. So that's where the knowing who's your perfect customer applies. Knowing who is that audience that you want to speak to applies, so you can craft the right message for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to the over aggressive posting, I think a lot of the social media channels have changed their algorithms a lot over the past few years. And so, say you're posting 5 times, it doesn't mean that that a consumer's getting hit 5 times in a row with your posts. And so, I think that that concern about over posting, I think that's. I appreciate how that was the case maybe a couple of years ago, but now I think there's enough filters in place that let the platform itself serve that content to consumers piece by piece. But yeah, at the same time, a lot of what we've seen working is that kind of behind the scenes content, right? And it's things like people don't like to necessarily film videos of themselves, but right now consumers are sitting at home drinking a beer, so being able to see a short 30-second video of how that beer was created, or behind the scenes, or what's also worked really well is like filming a live example of how your beer to go line works. So starting at the start and finishing at the end, and almost like a virtual tour of how that works. Content like that is unique to your brewery, and you can put your own kind of brand and own kind of voice behind, I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. We are seeing a very high trend on more like personalized content out there, and
Yeah,
makes it easy for everybody too, because that means that you don't have to necessarily go and pay video production to make your
yeah,
videos, make your pictures and all that stuff. You just need your phone, maybe a tripod, then you're ready to
yeah.
go.
Yeah. I mean, listen, right now, folks are sitting at home, they're bored, they're looking for any kind of entertainment they can get. And so definitely the level of quality is that people are expecting is lower. I wouldn't worry too much about that, but just being real, honestly, I think is the most important thing. And giving folks a glimpse into the behind the scenes, I think works really well. I think being honest as well. Consumers understand that the craft beer industry is in a tough spot right now, and potentially we're looking at craft breweries closing around the country. So being open and honest with consumers, I think has also worked very well. I've seen a number of breweries who said, listen, we could really do with your support right now to come out and buy beer to go. And I think that's consumers have responded to that pretty well.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And one of the very interesting things that I read on your report, besides how people are like, okay, we want to see your stuff on social media. We want to get updates. We want to get emails. We want to get texts. We want you to communicate with us. I mean, that's great data right there. But one of the things that caught my attention was how people is even willing to drive over 20 miles to go and pick up some beer. That is insane. That's a game changer right now, I believe.
Yeah, and I mean that was one of the shock pieces that came out of our survey, to be honest, was the folks who were saying not only they'd be willing to drive in that kind of 10 to 15 mile bracket, but how people were willing to drive 20 plus, 25 plus miles to get beer. And I'll be honest, having been at home for close to 2 months, I get it. I do get it, right? And so I'll happily drive for half an hour, knowing that's a safe environment for me to drive in. If the place I know I'm going to, I know what beer they have, I've pre-bought it, I have a pickup time, I know it's safe and sanitary, and it's a really easy process, then I'm willing to make that drive. And so I think a lot of breweries who are maybe in smaller towns or rural areas, I think they've been able to do well out of that, because folks in the city want to take a drive out into the country. They want to take 2 or 3 hours, even if it means sitting in their car and picking up beer on the way. So yeah, folks are willing to move to pick up the beer they want.
Which is great, because that means that breweries can expand their reach through social media, especially if they're paying for ads. They can start targeting the next city and other communities so they can attract more people. So the opportunity is out there. And one of the more revealing truths that I believe you found in that report is how uh, craft beer drinkers are being still faithful and still loyal to craft beer, because, and I want you to expand on that because before I read your report, the only thing that I was looking out there in articles and stuff like that were people saying that, oh yeah, the people is drinking more beer, but they're not buying craft beer. But I believe that you just completely destroy that idea because with your report, which is very clear what it says. So can you
Yeah,
expand a little more on that?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, of the folks that we surveyed, obviously they are craft beer drinkers. The folks that we surveyed, that's kind of one of we don't ask necessarily you're a craft beer drinker, but you generally wouldn't take the craft beer survey unless you were a craft beer drinker. But certainly what they were saying was that there was a number of them drinking as much, if not potentially more craft beer now than usual. I think that's been really positive for beer to go in particular. It's impossible to maintain sales levels out of your tap room if people can't sit in your tap room. But I have spoken to a number of breweries who've done, 70-80% of their tap room volume through their beer to go models, which I think is fantastic. I think that a few things that I've seen breweries do well. If a brewery was previously only open on the weekend, maybe they've gone to 6 or 7 days a week to be open, which gives them obviously more ability to sell beer on different days. In the same way, consumers are buying at odd times of the week as well. You're seeing a lot more, Monday and Tuesday visits to buy beer to go that wouldn't traditionally be a Monday or Tuesday visit to the tap room. So the survey was very positive in that sense. It should give confidence to craft breweries that there are folks out there who are willing to make those beer to go runs. But again, it just goes back to making sure that all of your information is out there, it's accurate, it's up to date, it's engaging with consumers on a daily basis. Because I think that's the real key.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you because if there's no engagement, people would not listen to you. People would not remember your brand. And then eventually, when they're ready to make a buying decision, you're not going to be the option they're going to choose, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing worse than someone saying, well, I'm sat there on a Wednesday, maybe I'll go to this brewery, but I'm not sure if they're open or not. I'm not sure if they have that beer on this week to go. And so, yeah, I can't say enough. I think we're both saying the same thing, right? Get as much information out there as many times as possible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And but I believe at this point we cannot stress enough how important that is, because a lot of people are still struggling out there, man. And a lot of people is like, how can I get more people? But if you don't listen to the information and the data that is being put out there, and that you are doing all that hard work for the brewery, so now we can have real information that can open our eyes and say, okay, what do I need to do now? So we already covered that. Yeah, you have to put the information out there, that you need to communicate effectively. What other strategies you have discovered that can be beneficial for them to make more sales in the upcoming weeks?
I think making kind of your online reservation or online store, online point of sale as easy to use as possible. I think that is important. I think breweries are doing that very well now, but 2 weeks ago, a number of breweries that I work with just didn't necessarily have that as clear as possible on their website. Not just being able to buy beer, but also being able to buy things that can be delivered electronically or via the mail. So merchandise that can be mailed, or gift cards. Gift cards have been a big source of. So a gift card does a couple of things, right? One, it gives that brewery an injection of cash right now, and two, it gives you as a consumer something exciting to look forward to when everything opens again. And so we've certainly been encouraging folks to buy gift cards as much as possible. If it's their birthday or anniversary, to encourage their friends to buy them gift cards to local breweries, but also encouraging breweries to make that process as easy as possible. We saw a couple of breweries that we came across their websites where the only thing you could buy was $100 gift card. And so trying to, working with your point of sale provider and saying, look, how can you have different levels of gift cards on your website, or how can you have it so that someone can buy a gift card of whatever value they choose, be it anything between $5 and $100. So I think there's certain things there that the breweries can do to tap into people's goodwill in particular, because I know where I've got family across the rest of the US, there's places that I go and breweries that I go that I would happily buy gift cards either for them or for me to use when I am able to go visit in the future. So again, making that as easy and as intuitive as possible, I think is a really important thing. The other thing we were finding is, and this goes back to the engagement piece, is to make sure that breweries are tapping into as many local or regional or national campaigns as possible, beer to go campaigns as possible. Community Beer, which is not too far from where you are, up in Dallas, ran the nationwide Cheers campaign every Friday. At 5 p.m. they would do a virtual nationwide cheers, and so they'd encourage everyone to go buy beer to go in the days before that. I think things like that have been fantastic. Here in Texas Craft Brewers Guild did a weekend beer to go run, where they drove the public out to buy beer to go over the course of 4 days, and that was fantastically successful for all the breweries that were involved. So being involved in any kind of local, national, or regional campaign, I think is really important, and that's something breweries can do themselves, right? It's easy to build an online campaign that gets you to buy a certain beer ahead of time. I saw a brewery in Maryland recently that was doing a virtual tasting of their beer. So here's a mixed 4-pack. You come in, you buy it, you get a Zoom code, and then Friday at 5 p.m., everyone with that code can log in, and we can do a tasting and talk about those beers together. So I think there's some ways you can be innovative around the limitations that you've got right now.
Absolutely. And those are great ideas, and I would like to hear your opinion on this, because I know a lot of people it feels weird for a lot of breweries right now making this transition online, because, craft beer industry has always been a hospitality industry, about that human touch, about being in the tap room, having some beers, enjoying time with your friends and all that stuff. But what good piece of advice you can give brewery owners on making that transition to online a little bit easier for them? Because it feels weird, it feels completely weird having to be in a Zoom grabbing a beer and tell me, oh, how do you think this tastes? It's
It is strange, right? And so a big part of visiting breweries, and it's definitely a big part of it for me, is sitting at the bar and shooting the shit with the person behind the bar, or the girl or guy sat next to you, and like sharing that common experience. And I think it's impossible to replicate that online, but there's certain things and aspects you can do, I think, that can practically kind of help that. I know of some breweries who've done things like private Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups for their core consumers. And what you can do in there is you can fire a lot more information to your, say, best 50 customers, because they're not going to get tired of getting that information, as some people might, in terms of over posting. I think, again, understanding who your audience is. If you're a brewery that sees a lot of single visits, because you're in a place that people pass through a lot, then your approach is going to be different if you have a group of 100 regulars. And so understanding what your demographic of folks is, I think, is really important when you're kind of moving to online, or moving some of your content online. But I think, at the same time, just making sure that you're collecting data on everyone that comes in. The good thing with the online POS systems is that you get name and email address, usually, of those folks, and you can engage them afterwards. But making sure that everyone that comes in understands, they can follow you on Facebook, they can follow you on Instagram, they can follow you on Twitter, that you have something coming up, like a live video coming up at 5 p.m. Things like that are quite easy to communicate. And so just making sure everyone has that information to hand, because I see a lot of breweries right now who are engaging with new customers during the lockdown, but they're not taking those steps to make sure they're capturing that data and able to engage with them once they're open again. So definitely thinking about that is important as well.
Which I believe it is important to mention that data doesn't mean something that only people like you can collect. Like you were saying, it is something that every single business on this earth needs to have, because it is the most valuable asset any brewery can have in this case, because like you said, not only for from an investment standpoint, but also as a retargeting purposes, as to keep people more engaged with your offers, with your content, with the things that you can, events that you can put out there. You can directly speak to them and take them away from all that noise on social media, right? So I think it's very, very important to understand. And I'm glad that you mentioned about the data part, and how it's important for them to have that database of their customers. It's the most important thing they can collect at that point.
It's really important, and it's important to have their email address, but it's also important that they're engaging with you in other ways as well. So social media is a big one also. So making sure that everyone on your email lists are following you on social media and converting them that way, I think is really important. But you're right in terms of the comment you made about data being very important, and I think that's not just consumer data; it's just data in general. I think breweries have access to a lot of different numbers that can start to tell them stories about their consumer base that can help them make better business decisions. Even basic things like understanding on any given day how many of my customers today, or how many of my transactions today were from customers that I already knew or were here for the first time. And things like that you can take from your POS, from credit card usage, saying, okay, this number of credit cards were used for the first time today compared to this many that have been used before. Even understanding that and saying, okay, on a Sunday we get more first-time customers than we do on a Saturday, and does that mean that we need to change something about a Sunday? Should we be doing beer releases on a day that we know we're going to get the biggest number of new customers, or the opposite? But just having that data allows you to make those decisions a bit better, honestly. And then the other thing that we do is we, because we're independent, we're a non-commercial organization right now, but we do advise breweries on putting surveys together of their consumers and understanding, okay, how do we understand what you guys really think about us, where we are right now, where we'd like to be in the future, what are the things that we are good at, what are the things we're not so good at, which breweries would you compare us to, be it for our certain beers or for our taproom experience. How far are you traveling to come to our brewery? If we're distributing, where else are you getting our beer? Which are the craft beer bars? Which are the grocery stores you buying our beer at? Surveys of that are pretty easy to put into the field, and particularly if you have that email database that you just talked about set up, you can pull some interesting and useful data pretty quickly to be able to make better business decisions.
Right. No, and I totally agree with you. And now that you mentioned that, I mean, there's different ways to do that. One of the things that we do in my company is we build what we call the digital tap room.
Yep.
So basically, it's a combination of funnels, automation, text messages, email campaigns, the whole 9 yards, right? And that is something that, for example, that service that you are enticing breweries to do, it can be a good way. Automation can be a good way to do it. Like, listen, scan this code, take this survey, and if you take this survey right now, I'll give you $10 off your tap today or something. We just want to improve our service for you. There's so many ways to do this. And one of the things that I have discovered, and maybe you can give some advice, not because, especially for the people that doesn't have like the automation or like a digital tap room, the ones that we're building, how easy it is actually to ask for people for that information. Because here's one of the things or objections that I have encountered, and that's, I just feel like being aggressive, by asking people for the phone number, their email, and all that kind of stuff. What is some of the strategies you advise to brewery owners on the best way they can collect this information besides the POS system? Because that's the other thing. A lot of people, they don't even know they have access to that. That's a reality.
No, of course. I mean, here's the thing. Nowadays, it's pretty common behavior to give your email address when you purchase something, right? And so I think that creates opportunities, but also complications. It creates opportunities because you can get hold of folks' email addresses pretty quickly, but then when you're emailing them, you're one of 1,000 people emailing them, and it's hard to get them to open an email, let alone to engage with that email. What I think you can do as a brewery owner is almost put a new take on this kind of membership or mug club concept, and that is saying, well, listen, if you become a member, which may just be you give us your email address, then that's going to give you access to certain offers or certain opportunities, be it we're going to open one Wednesday a month where we wouldn't usually be open for our members to come on in, or be it, you're going to get $1 off a beer at some point down the road, or depending on state law, or a free beer somewhere down the road if you answer this survey. And I think incentivizing that way is a really useful, really effective way of doing it, honestly. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of breweries who have websites that just says, sign up here for our newsletter, and then really no incentive or no enticement or no explanation on what you're going to get. if you sign up. So even a 1 or 2 line explanation, listen, you're going to get information on beers before they're released, or you're going to get access to, deals and discounts, or limited release merchandise, so you can buy it before general public. I think just incentivizing it and creating that incentive package is a good way of just offering just a little bit more. It hasn't got to be anything free. It can just be early access through a mailing list. I think giving early access to either information or to product is a really good way of building a mailing list.
Yeah, it's pretty much like having a value proposition. Like, you give me
Yeah,
your information and I give you this in return. Like,
yeah,
if you give me your phone number and your email, you can get this in return, as because we value you as a customer. You can get a discount. You can, like you said, it all depends
yeah,
also in your state law. Which mentioned about the laws, especially here in Texas. You were mentioning before about breweries having private groups, where with their core audience, right, with their core customers, which I
yeah,
believe probably would have to check that later. Maybe we can answer that question later. But for example, for the state of Texas, I believe it can be a great opportunity to actually give uh, different incentives to your audience without having to break the law. Because I know here in Texas, you cannot give like get one for free, right? You cannot
yeah,
promote stuff. But if you're not promoting, you just have, it's your community. It's like if you're having people in front of you,
yeah.
it's something that it will be interesting, or I don't know if you know about that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot of good resources out there. Texas Craft Brewers Guild, as all the state brewers guilds, are really good at kind of letting you know what you can and can't do. And I always kind of use them as a primary resource. I think every state has 2 or 3 very good alcohol law lawyers as well. But often, whether you can give away beer or discount beer, which is often the things that are hard to do, you can always discount or give away other things, I would say. And so that might mean packaging things together as, buy this 4-pack, here's a glass that goes with it, or buy this, here's a t-shirt that goes with it. That's a good way to incentivize if you're looking at the kind of discounting a deal side of things. But yeah, understanding state laws is a tough one. Again, coming from the UK, I've been in the US 10 years. It's still one of the things I struggle to get my head around. When I can drive from Washington D.C. to New York, but I can't pump my own gas in New Jersey. It is one of those things I struggle to get my head around.
Yeah, no, me too, man. Especially with I work with breweries all across the country, so sometimes it's like, oh, I need to be careful how we
Yeah,
build these offers for this brewery in Florida,
yeah,
for example, than the ones here in Texas, because we don't want to get in trouble. We don't want to find ourselves in the middle of big trouble or legal issue. So I think it's important. But like I said, man, I think you have shared very valuable information here, especially how important it is to know your data, to know the numbers, to know the
mm-hmm.
information out there. Because I believe in this episode, and with the report that you just launched a couple of weeks ago, I think you are uncovering a lot of different things that we thought that were different. Like I was telling you, people is like, brewers owners are like, oh yeah, people is buying beer, but they're not buying craft beer. It's not
Yeah,
true. You just prove that.
yeah.
You just prove it. So, and I know that you work on this all the time. And what do you think are the best strategies besides the social media, besides communicating, besides everything that we talked about so far? So for the next coming months, because we don't know what's
Yeah.
going to happen. I know you don't know exactly what's going to happen, but what's your best prediction for the next couple months?
I don't. I'm, one of the hardest things is understanding as we start to reopen each state, like what the rules and regulations are going to be and how that's going to affect craft breweries, particularly with the social distancing piece. I think we're not going to see a busy tap room, kind of crowded tap room for a while, if I'm honest. And so I think focusing on that online piece is really important. I think people are still you're going to still see people buying that beer to go, and engaging with breweries online a lot more. And I think that's one of the things that is here to stay. Hopalytics recently entered into a partnership with an organization called Brewstubs, 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 and they're launching next month. They're an online platform that lets consumers not just find and discover beer, but lets them kind of reserve it before they go to the tap room as well. And so that's helping breweries, drive tap room visits, helping them drive purchases online, and it's 100% free for breweries. And so I would say my advice to breweries is like explore things like that that are low cost, that don't require too much effort, but have huge revenue upside, and will give you access to new consumers. Because there are a few platforms that they like that, like Brew Stubs, and I think that's the kind of an additional way in which you can kind of get your brand out there and ensure that you're kind of stabilizing that revenue flow. Because things have been bad. They're going to get better, but it's going to be a while until they're back to where they were.
Oh, absolutely. And just to like reinforce what you were saying, the industry is not going to be the same after this. We're not going to get back to what we used to have before. That's absolutely truth, because we've been in this for over 60 days. At this point, there's new habits, there's new behaviors, there's new consumers habits, and the way they purchase and the way they find products and services, and it's going to change. I think this is the time right now where breweries can actually start implementing those little strategies, like you said, cost effective, that they can ramp up in the next couple of weeks, that can help them right now build that online presence. Because after all this is over, like this is the way I see it, everybody's we're gonna go back to normal. We're gonna be able to go back to the tap room and have fun with our friends and all that stuff. But having an option that maybe that night you cannot go to the tap room, but you're having visits at home, and on your way you can just place an order online, pick up something for your guests at home. Having those opportunities, or even if you're allowed to deliver beer, I would love to be, when I get home, especially if I'm working all day long, I don't want to stop by the tap room. It's like, you know what, guys, can you just drop that stuff at my house? I'm tired. How do you think I'm going to feel if I get home and find a growler at my door? I'm going to feel freaking amazing, So I think those are the opportunities. We need to start being more open to it, because I think it is hard going through changes, but I think there's something good coming, especially for the craft beer industry. There's something great coming, and I feel it.
Yeah. I mean, you're right, because I think what we're going to see is a lot fewer just kind of like random taproom visits, or people calling in thinking, oh, I wonder how that is. I think that's not going to happen as much. And so as a brewery, just making sure that you're you have accurate, up-to-date information on as many online platforms as possible, I think is really, really important. And obviously, we've talked about it. That's your website, that's your social media, that's third-party websites like Brewstubs and other ones, and it's Yelp, it's Google. It's just making sure that everything's up to date. And so wherever someone searches for you, then they get that information, and it makes their visit, they're as confident as possible about their visit, and it's as easy as possible.
Yeah. Tell them more about this new platform. So you said that it's free, right?
Yeah, it's free for breweries. And so it's a new additional place that breweries can kind of list themselves and list their beer, list their merchandise and their events as well. And so from a consumer standpoint, it's a place that they can go to kind of discover not just that new brewery, but that new beer and that new experience. We've partnered with Brewstubs because they saw a lot of value in our data. In the data that we're collecting, in particular in the behavioral data that we're collecting, because they're trying to deliver that experience to the consumer, but also then trying to help the brewery on the back end to drive more visits, drive more interactions. And so, listen, I think the craft beer industry is probably a few years behind other industries with some of these good third-party websites, and so I'm really excited about it, honestly. And going back to what I said at the start, things like Google Review, Yelp, they're not built for the craft beer industry. They're not. It's kind of like a one-size-fits-all. And if you look at every craft brewery I know has the same number of stars on Yelp. It's like 4.6 to 4.8 generally. And if you look at the one-star reviews, they're all kind of nonsense, silly ones. And so I think there needs to be more of these kind of online areas where you can go and based on your preference, or based on your craft beer preference, rather than just search randomly, you get kind of delivered this information on new breweries. And so, again, now's the best time, I think, to try things like that, and to make sure that you're listed on sites like Brewstubs, because there is some downtime right now. And as you said, this industry is not going back to the way it was, right? There is going to be a much more significant online factor to craft beer when we come out the other side. And so it's almost like we need to adapt.
Yeah, totally. Like everybody needs to adapt at this point, So And it doesn't mean that you're not gonna, like you said, it doesn't mean that you're not gonna have people walking into your brewery. But the same people that was able to walk 2 times into the brewery, you're giving them option to consume your beer every day of the week now through online ordering too.
Yeah.
So I mean, the same customers you have right now, they're gonna be buying more from you, and that is something that I don't think brewery owners should be afraid of, to sell more. Like I was talking with somebody a couple months ago, like you need to teach your 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 servers how to upgrade, how to
Yeah.
upsell. You try this, why you don't try this other one? You want to take something to go, and it's not about trying to show people's face to buy more stuff. It's just the nature of a business. You know what I mean?
That's so true. And I've actually come across a couple of breweries here in Austin over the past week since they've started to open up a little bit, who've been very good at that. So it's not just offering tasters at the start; it's offering tasters when you check out as well, right? That's one of the things I think will be different in the future. I think, when you go into a brewery right now, a good bartender will say, what kind of beer do you like? Try this or this. These, I can give you some advice. I think that's also going to happen on the way out of the brewery as well. You can now you're used to taking beer to go. You like these 2 IPAs. We have a third IPA. Do you want to take a crowler? I think that's going to be definitely a way to drive revenue, because people's behavior has changed, right? People are more used to having a lot of beer in their fridge because they have to, because it's like at home. So take advantage of that.
No, you're completely right, man. And put it this way too: your your employees can make more money too. Your
Yeah.
employees can generate higher tips. And if you have a customer that is happy, like I always like to say, if you have something that can change someone's life or add value to their life, you have the moral obligation to sell that product. So if you have a
Yeah.
customer that is fascinated with your beer, like you said, you have he tried 2 IPAs, you have a third one. You have that moral obligation to, like, man, I have another. You probably would like to try it, and you're gonna fall in love with this one too. You would like to take Growler with you. So
That's exactly it. And there's other behaviors that are going to change as well. One of the things I've talked about to people a lot about is limited releases. Are people going to want to wait in line again around the block for beer? Well, the answer is, fewer people are going to want to wait in line. So I think if you can find ways in which you can pre-sell that beer so that someone can come in and pick it up because they bought it online and they have a ticket, and they can pick it up at their convenience. Well, they're going to feel safer doing that. They're probably going to do it at a time when they can spend an hour in your tap room, and so can spend more money and drink some beers. So if you can start to take that approach to limited release, I think that'll serve you well as a brewery coming out the other side as well. And that was one of the other reasons I really liked, or we chose to partner with Brew Stubs, is because that's exactly what they do. They assign you a ticket, and so if there's 100 bottles, you can pick it up some point in the next 7 days. So rather than running in at 9 a.m. and picking it up and running out again, you can sit and have some beers and pick it up at your convenience. So just understanding that consumer behavior is going to change and trying to get ahead of that as a brewery owner, I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, this idea of brew style, I think, is a great idea, man. And it is great to see things like this, because I'm seeing that you are serving this industry and partnering with some other company that have something that can a service that can be provided for free, is something that can help a lot of these breweries right now. That's one of the things that we're doing. Actually, I working together with one merchant processing company. They're my friends and we're partners. And what we do is that we build the online menu, and we give you a merchant processing account. There's no fees on it. We cover all the fees. So
Okay.
you don't have to pay nothing up front. We give you the tablet, we give you the printer, we give you everything you need. And even if you want us to pay for some ads at the beginning, we can even do that too. And the only thing that you have to pay is a percentage out of your sales on a weekly basis. So there's no risk, but you have the opportunity, like with you, with Brewstop, with the things that we're doing, they have the opportunity now to, like, okay, let's test social media. Let's test an online menu. While we don't run some campaigns, they're paying for it, like.
Yeah. Well, but I'll be honest, that's the one thing I've seen that again is credit to the craft beer industry, is that at a time of crisis, there's been a lot of collaboration, right? Not just amongst breweries, but also, amongst third-party providers, amongst consumers. I've had friends who've done, 30-mile beer runs on behalf of a group of 6 of us. And it just seems to be a lot of just folks looking out for one another and looking for opportunities to be stronger together. And again, that's one of the things I love about this industry. It's one of the things I think it's a credit to everyone that's involved. I think it's the reason that we'll come out on the other end, maybe looking a bit different, but but hopefully still healthy and, still kicking around and still ready to kick big beer's ass.
Absolutely, man. Like I said, um, things are gonna be fine, and there's something great coming, and this is the time to embrace it. If people listen to this right now or in the future, they don't want to stay behind. Like, you need to embrace what's coming, and you need to embrace the changes. It's just how life works. It's just how everything works around us. So I think there's great opportunities, and like you said, there's people like you, there's people like me that we're providing basically services for free to help them get through this. And that's something that one of the reasons why I admire and love to serve this industry as well. I mean, I think there's a lot of people helping out there, consumers, like you said, people that build the charities, and people like you and other people around that are actually helping. So I believe that's a great example even for other industries, especially that I'm a lot in the entrepreneur world. I know a lot of people from other industries, and there's people out there in other industries that they're ripping people off.
Yeah.
They're taking advantage of the situation, while the craft beer industry, what they're doing is how we can help each other, how we can make sure that we can put a system up together so you can make more sales online. And don't worry, we worry about the money later. The way now is to survive and get through this season. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
There's going to be brewery owners that they're going to get hit really hard. Unfortunately, there's going to be losses and stuff like that. But I think if we unite even more right now, we can even improve all together and get through this, and in a couple of months be all of us having a beer together and getting drunk.
Yeah, exactly. No, 100%. And I've seen so many stories of breweries helping breweries right now as well. Someone's short of a half pallet of cans. Well, some other brewery has that extra half pallet that they can throw them over, or things like that. And so that's my other piece of advice is don't be afraid to reach out to help, right? For help to other breweries, to third-party folks, to your consumer base. I think being honest and transparent right now is super important, and I'm hoping that we've started to turn a corner, and things are starting to take a more positive turn as we can hopefully open back up in the coming weeks. But it's still some tough times ahead.
Yeah, absolutely, but nothing that we can survive, and well, we've been here almost for an hour talking, man. It's great. I mean, I love the conversation. I think you've been providing a lot of good insight and great information that can help people right now, but before we wrap this up, you said that BrewStub is going to be launched soon, right?
Yeah, the BrewStubs platform launches at the end of May. And so for breweries who want to be involved in that, brewstubs.com, or you can follow BrewStubs on Instagram. If you're looking for our information, Hopalytics, hopalytics.com, that has all of our reports on there, as well as some good content and articles on things like how to best set up your beer to go, 15 different tips for kind of getting through the lockdown, as well as our data reports that show the different consumer behavior as well. And yeah, I'll say this to anyone who's listening: if you need any help or advice on setting up analytical reporting, either off data that you have on your POS or from surveying consumers, then I'm more than happy to help with that. That's an easy 15 or 20 minutes over the phone. I think I can point you in the right direction, and that more than happy to help.
Absolutely. Besides your website, there's other channels they can find you or get in contact with you, maybe a fan page, Instagram.
Yeah,
Facebook.
We are at Hopalytics on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can follow me, Hopalytics Al, on Twitter as well. You can find us on social media. You can check out our website, and then we publish data reports with other partners as well. So you'll see us from place to place. Often it's one of our stats followed by a source reference for Hopalytics. But a lot of people are using our data.
Awesome, man. Awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time, man. And I don't know if there's another piece of advice you want to give before we wrap this up, just share with us. I mean, you have shared a lot of great information, man. I think you just poured everything that you had into this episode. And I think there's a lot of great stuff that people can take advantage of it or reach out to you as well, if they need any help with your data, like you said. But before we leave, man, if there's anything else you would like to share with us or any last piece of advice you would like to give everybody out there listen to this show.
Yeah, just keep on grinding. It'll get better. I promise. I'm sure of it. The data says so. The data says it'll get better. tough times right now, and I know we're all feeling it, but keep hanging there.
Yeah, great. That's the
Yeah.
best piece of advice I can give, actually, man. Like, just keep going. Let's keep grinding. Let's keep working, and let's keep pushing forward, because one way or another one, we're gonna get out of this situation. So I really appreciate you, man, and I'm really grateful you taking the time of being here, brother.
More than happy to. And listen, I really appreciate the opportunity. I've been watching some of your other shows. I'm excited to see, to go back and watch this, even though I hate watching myself on video.
It takes a while. It takes a while to get used to it, man. Like, especially for me, it took me a while because, like, English is not my first language. And I know I have an accent too. And sometimes I messed up and I fuck things up when I'm recording or something. But you know what? Who cares? The most important thing for me is to put the message out there and have people like you that can bring valuable information that can impact someone's life out there, that can be useful for some brewery owner or anybody else in the craft beer industry, can help them thrive and become better, whatever they're doing in the industry, So, I mean, it's a matter of getting used to, but I really appreciate you, man. And for those of you listening, guys, make sure that you check the previous episodes too. If you haven't joined my group, go to Brewing Business Network on Facebook. You can join us there. You can see the videos, and there's more information. There's more people sharing a lot of stuff there. Education too, we're going to start making more videos there where we can educate you more on social media, how you can leverage in a better way. And there's a lot of great things coming to serve you guys. So thank you guys for watching or listening to this in the podcast or YouTube channel. And I really appreciate you guys. And Aled, thank you so much. And I hope maybe in the future we can make another episode with more data,
Hey man, absolutely. And thank you. Listen, I appreciate everything you do for the industry. I think this is great content. And thank you, man. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you. And we will see you guys next week for another episode. We have a really important guest next week, so stay tuned, guys. And that'll be all for all my guys. And see you guys later. Cheers and take care.
Cheers.
Hey guys, thank you for watching. This show was brought to you by the Marketing Brewing Company, an industry-leading marketing provider and coaching firm. If this episode have provided you with valuable information for you and your business, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you know somebody who needs to hear this, share it with them. Send me a text message, a DM, put it on social media, whatever you can do to spread the word. And lastly, if you're a brewery owner ready to take your business to the next level, make sure you head to marketingbrewingco.com and fill out the form to get started and get your free assessment of your current marketing and sales strategies. I will see you guys for the next episode. In the meantime, cheers.